and welcome to Climate Check with me, Mary Mwekisa. I'm so excited to be here as we continue to discuss issues that anchor on national development, sustainable national development. And today on the program, we'll be focusing on illicit financial flows, IFFs, in Zambia's mining sector and their implications for climate resilient development. And of course, that is what we'll be focusing on the program today. Welcome back to the program. We now take you to a clip that highlights mining activities in Zambia.
Zambia's copper belt, the beating heart of the nation's economy. For a long time now, these mines have powered industries, built cities, and promised prosperity. But beneath that promise lies a heavy price, paid by those who live closest to the mines.
Living in the mining area, it's not easy because lots of pollution happen. Number one, water pollution. Yes, the water is very much polluted. Nama chemicals there for mine. Because ngatolesha ama streams there pita moyonsa ya fumi na kumaini. So elama chemicals yonsa ya kumaini yapita ma streams mgazeni. Ela mpona mukafshiwa river. So most of the times, you know, I mean shala polluted. And the water nkana themselves, they'll come to say, no, today, I mean shumitapa, yadi polluted. Maybe valeta konama water bowsers fiafini because of the water's face diarrhea. Na mumala fesana such that jimoturatino kia mukutapa mensha ya kuna fera any direct. Tura mukutapa ko kuma balls pama chai cheze mashani aba kwa tama balls ile ma pure water.
Wusakile, once a proud mining township, now sits under a haze of chemical dust and fear. The community's daily life revolves not around progress, but survival.
Ama challenge tukwata sana ni noise pollution na dust pollution. Ilo na vibration ya mgodi. For example, kuno moku, tualisa tampo kwa complain. Mnando kwa tilo vale chisa tupata. Ama ndalisa tampo kwa tama crack. So tualisa ta report kuiba mine. So valisa some community no research da assess. Mando na unaike. Balifo kutati abe ni babate compensate. Nibashenda tete nite compensate. Instead, valisa tumafya abantu bakisa mkuwamia. Tumanda tutu unaike. Vavika mu kuwamia. Valisa tampo kubika tuma crack monitors. Muma crack munamune tude mwana movement. In case ngaje palita plastic ngaje ama crack yale rate expand. Twalisa bomba na bokwatu almost 8-9 years. Yeah, so yeah, shide putula sana during the coronavirus. Ile shide isa. Bashire ndokuti at first wala imini kali itakuwa duma movement. So after yasa apoelia abantu babwelele yo. So kuma parape ni futwa imini na tabashire wela yo.
Zambia's mining wealth has long been tied to people's lives. But as the walls crack, so does the trust. Across the copper belt, the air and water, once life-giving, now carry death in invisible forms. Acid rains, sulfur dioxide, and toxic effluents have turned rivers into chemical streams.
Tuli abalimi abene nga kuchimwamona tulila gardens. So yama gardens nga twalima first we start with ama vegetables. Nga twafunyamu ama vegetables tulabika mu amataba. Nga twafunyamu amataba tulabika mu cabbage. Nga twafunyamu cabbage tulesa mu kubika mu ama carrots. So effort to chita survive through ama gardens. Ifyo shinenda la manga twashitisha tulalipilila bana kuma skulu medical bills na okuyifuika tuyifuikira mu gardens nomba apo imaini yaishira kwena obulimi nabo bwashupa pantu nangu mwinga byala efintu kuchifyaisa fye bwino eventually fyapya kuchimwamuna na repwe taile moneka health
ba Longsing na ba CCS baliona ulamenshi from the starting ya Kakamana Kalwela up to Mwambashi River. Isabiri ali muri Kalwela stream work. Abantu bali amukulobesa ashitisha ashitofya refwa. This time utamwaba. Even in Mwambashi was collided na sinometo. Bonse fya ishire chitikira fye mukukonkana. Ya chita bust ku sinometos. Papita fya a week na pena pa fya chita bust. Abantu bachita complain wa government baisa. Bati bale fuma kofye bashala bale bomba. Twayipusha nomba kuti bashala shani bale bomba ba. After all aba pango mulandu ni shina bali pira. Anti wageni ba minister baisa abwera. Kwe bati yo isaleni. Epa kuisala Longsing.
Would want to see that the laws stipulates to how the communities that are affected by the mining communities can benefit immediately from the mines. The other aspect that we would want to see is the corporate social responsibility need now to speak to a law on how it should be. And we are proposing as Futurepreneur, let it not be corporate social responsibility, let it be corporate social investment.
You need to have a law that says you must reinvest this amount of money in this sector where you are mining. If you don't put it that way, I decide where to take my social corporate responsibility. I take it to boxing, I take it to the bar, I take it to golf, I take it to football. When you say you're not doing anything, I say, here, I'm doing something.
Welcome back to Climate Check. My guest on the program joining me via phone from the Copper Belt is Dr. James Musonda. He is a social political anthropologist and he is currently the senior researcher for the energy policy at the Institute for Economic Justice and principal investigator for the Just Transition Research in Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa. And he is speaking to us on Climate Check in his individual capacity. Thank you so much, Doc, for allowing us to have this conversation with you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to feature on this program and for having invited me.
All right. Now, let's get your assessment of Zambia's mining sector in terms of contributing to the country's GDP.
Yes, the mining sector continues to contribute between 70 to 80% in terms of forex, about 10%, between 10 to 20% in terms of revenue, and about 12% to GDP. This is a figure that is still significant, given that there are a lot of problems that happen in the sector where we lose quite a lot of money. But of course, one would argue that this is not more than we used to get in the 1960s and 1970s when we owned these mines. So the mining sector remains a very strategic sector, and it is also responsible for managing the foreign the forex. The interest rates in the banks. It's also the exchange rate. So we have it at the center of all our activities.
Okay. Is the current documented contribution a reflection of the true picture?
Yes. So what we see in terms of contribution of the mining sector does not contribute to the actual figures of the actual value that is captured or that remains in the economy for various reasons. One of them is illicit financial flows, a topic that you've ably identified and I'm very happy to talk about. And I will tell you just in terms of figures from other perspectives. Africa in general, which includes Zambia, loses about close to 90 billion annually through illicit financial flows. And what are these illicit financial flows? We are talking about, tax evasion, money laundering, trade misinvoicing, and corruption. And I'll give you one specific case, which was involving Glencore, and this has been documented. But this also involves some other companies that are still operating in Zambia.
Mm-hmm.
One way in which they do this is they will exaggerate the cost of production. So the cost of production would be, for argument's sake, or as an example, $1,
Yes.
but they'll say $3. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Then they will go to their companies, which are their own companies, which are banks in Europe. They are going to borrow maybe at 5% interest. Then they will charge 10% interest on their loans. Then they are now going to sell copper. Instead of selling copper at the global copper price, which is around $8, they would sell copper maybe at $5 or $4 to their company in the UK. So what happens there is that there is underpricing, there is exaggeration of the cost of borrowing, there is over-exaggeration of the cost of production. But this is the money that is through the companies outside. So in other words, they send the profits outside. So one would argue to see a company such as Glencore, which has left, for operating in Zambia for 20 years. But then the company was making losses, reporting losses all the time for 20 years, but it never left the country. But if you look at Glencore UK, Glencore UK was making profits. And I'm not saying this from as an accusation. If you look at the recent rulings that have been made in the UK, Brazil, they find that this is what was happening. So that's one conduit in which these companies, evade taxes. And when you look at them, they'll tell you, we have a 20-year agreement with this buyer. And the way the mining sector operates is that the buyer would say, look, I am going to buy your copper at $6 for the next 5 years. If the price comes down to less than $6, I'll still continue buying, meaning you are not going to make losses when the copper price goes down.
I see.
But when the copper price goes up about $6, that buyer makes a normal profit. And that is how the mining sector has been organized, more general. And it's very difficult because all these things that they are doing are legal.
We have heard of, although these are sentiments from some of the Zambians involved in mining, saying that as Zambians, when we mine, could be artisanal miners, when we mine, the methodology of taxation is different from the multilateral organizations who first have to take out their production cost, and at the end of the day, that's when the remaining amount, that is what goes into the taxation percentages. But for the Zambians, the picture is different. Is that correct? If so, why?
See, the thing about artisanal miners is that they don't have anywhere to sell the copper. The people who buy the copper, the people who buy the gold, are the same people who are selling gold on the global market. These Darabos in Kitu, they don't have where they sell copper. So they'll either sell to some Chinese companies or to some buyers who are here, who are still linked to the same mining, big mining multinational companies that you talk about. So it is at that level where taxation becomes a problem. Because if you have given incentives to these mining companies, the idea of giving incentives is that, okay, guys, you are not going to pay these taxes. We are going to reduce certain taxes in order that you can bring in your investments and also be able to employ our workers. That is the idea. Now, the problem with modern mining, and I think this is the point where, as Zambians, we need to open our eyes, including those people that are in government. Modern mining is characterized by utilization of artificial intelligence and advancement in technology. Both of these require less and less labor. So we are not going to get the 60,000 workers we had in 1976. This time, we won't get those workers. So if you see what is happening, the lumber mine, reserve were discovered through artificial intelligence. So what that means is that first we need to realize that mining is not going to generate as much jobs as they did. So then the only route is through taxation. But these mining companies are going to tell you can't tax us so much because then we cannot bring our money. So then the third, which is the final, is for you to increase ownership. Because ownership, then you are going to sell with them whatever tricks they will use. At the end of the day, you are going to be part of the sharing of the profits that you make. So let's assume this is a company which is 50-50 owned by the Zambian government, and then the government and also a private investor. Then this company does all these tricks that we are talking about, making profits, making all these tricks. Then it means still, when it comes to sharing the profits, Zambia is going to have the benefits, because then we have the money. But the thing is that if the ownership is very low, our ownership is very low, you find that you are going to lose out. So in terms of the artisanal mining, the truth is that at the end of the day, these artisanal miners still sell copper to the people who sell on the global market. Maybe the people who sell to the same company. So yes, they don't pay taxes, but they buy copper at a very, very low, they sell at a very low price. I'll give you an example of the Black Mountain in Quito. What was happening at the Black Mountain is that these guys will be given a truck, and they are told that, okay, this is the truck for you, and you are 12 of you. From that truck, the owner of the truck was going to take 3%. The loader was taking 2%. And then they were told, spillage, as we take the ore to the buyer, is 2%. At the end of the day, they were remaining with 2%. So that's just one example of how artisanal miners actually get the raw deal out of this.
Okay.
So
now, not to cut you short, Doc, as we get back to illicit financial flows, is it possible to have a working model that will put a stop to this, especially for the mining sector?
Mining situation now is so advanced that the operations have entrenched illicit financial flows. And therefore, the only best way is to increase ownership. That's number one. The second way is you want to monitor the actual output that is happening. Because, of course, there's also under declaration. Okay? That will tell us, okay, how much copper did you guys produce? 8,000 tons. Okay? We check and we verify that it actually is 8,000 tons. So there are people at the ground who are monitoring the copper, but also the passage of this copper and up to the port, and then it's gone. But that will not still work if there is corruption. When those who are monitoring are corrupted, that's number one. And then secondly, the value of the copper is undermined in various ways. The transportation, the storage in the port, and all this up to the time that it reaches the port. After that it reaches the buyer, you find that there are a lot of costs that are added. So the costing also is one way in which we can go. But it's very difficult. For example, if you have a Swiss weighing system, it is the Swiss who control the weighing system. And the Swiss are the ones that are working with these companies. And these are part of the same trading value chain. The mining companies have made a value chain. For example, Switzerland is not involved, it doesn't have the mining value. But if you look at all the transportation and logistics and the ports and the system, up to the time it reaches the buyer, the Swiss are the ones who are controlling this system. And Zambians have nothing to do about that. They don't know. So if that system is manipulated to say you have 1,000 tons and they report half the tonnage, you can't do anything about that.
Exactly.
So it's very difficult. It's very difficult. We can try the counting and the policing and all these things, but it's very, very difficult. The best solution.
Now, as a country, Doc, we know very well that the target is to produce 3 million metric tons of copper by 2031. And because the whole world is transitioning, and you are the best person to actually talk about this. And as a country, if we play our cards well, we're well positioned to benefit from this just transition. Who decides the rules of engagement when a mining investor comes into Zambia?
On paper, you would say that the government would make those decisions about what is going to happen. But that doesn't happen because you've got World Trade rules, the World Trade Organization rules, and then you've got other mining precedents of how mining companies work. But also there's competition for investment. If you look at the global statistics on investment, only about 10% of global investments come to Africa. You know, so there is this rush. When Cobalt, when IRH, when Mwamba, when Cobalt, when all these companies they want to come to Africa, you are going, first of all, to look at your problems. I'll give you an example of Zambia. You have a debt that you cannot repay, and you are trying to get a restructuring. Some of the conditions that are imposed, as you saw in 1996, 2000, when we were selling the mine, is that you need to sell your mine very, very quickly. And these companies always have an upper hand because, first of all, they come with trained negotiators who give you forecasts about where the global market is going. But they also give you statistics about how much money is spent in exploration. Because mining is a very expensive undertaking. So they'll say we spent so much money in exploration and in developing the mine, and it will take us 20 years to recoup the mining. We are ready to invest in your company. Okay? So you are already weakened by financial position. This is why borrowing is a problem. It's a very big problem when you are borrowing because at the end of the day, it weakens your position. And Zambia has always negotiated in a very weak position. The only time we negotiated better was in 1972. But still there, President Kaunda made a decision very quickly. And when we bought the mine, the following 3 years, global copper price went down. The mining companies already knew. So the issue is that we are often in a weak position. What we need to do, first of all, to regain our position is to stop the over-dependence on foreign investors. It's not an easy decision, but it is the only decision because it's the nature. And you can't blame anybody at this particular moment. Of course, the government, the previous government and the current government have their own share of the blame. But the thing is that the nature of mining architecture, economic architecture, already puts governments in the developing countries in a weak position. But what needs to happen? We can reclaim our position. If we start using our copper, Zambia is known, the whole world, as a country that is ranked number one in exporting raw copper. Now imagine, when you look at a lithium-ion battery, it requires 7 minerals. Copper, cobalt, lithium, manganese, all these are minerals that we have in Zambia. If we started manufacturing lithium-ion batteries here, it means that we can start demanding and using some of those minerals here in Zambia. You know, okay. So then we don't have to depend on the global market to buy our copper so that we can get the 70 to 80 forex revenue I was talking about.
Exactly. So now, Doc, as I let you go, how can we ensure environmental protection at the heart of mining activities in Zambia?
Yes. So in terms of environmental protection, what we need is to stiffen our laws. If you see the Chinese pollution that happened and the way they behave, I think one of the reasons that they feel that they can go away with. Zambia Environmental Management Authority needs to be capacitated by putting a lot of money there for monitoring and doing all this. The idea that mining companies are going to self-report is the biggest problem that we have. The lack of capacity at them is another big problem. So we need to do all this. We need to stiffen laws about the mining companies should know that their license will be threatened immediately they pollute. So it's enforcement, strengthening the laws, but also capacitating them.
We have come to the end of the program for this week. Do make a date with us next week, sometime, same channel. Remember to play your part in safeguarding the environment and climate justice. My name is Mary Mwikisa. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.